CTZ. So good, they named it thrice. I'm brewing a pale lager using only CTZ hop additions and asking participants to rate the characteristics of the resulting beer. I'll share those results and we'll also get into the convoluted reason as to why this hop got its strange name. This episode is brought to you by the Brülosophy podcast. More on that in a bit. There's something quite comforting about these Hop Chronicle beers. It's basically the same recipe over and over again. I just changed the hops. It means I can brew on autopilot. 3 grams of calcium chloride, 4 grams of gypsum. Check. 100% Pilsner malt. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. Give it a mix. And mash for 1 hour at 152 Fahrenheit, 67 Celsius. Easy peasy. So what are CTZ hops? It's an acronym for Columbus, Tomahawk and Zeus, and those are 3 privately owned trade names for what is essentially the same variety of hop, and it has an interesting history. Now, many hops today are patented. For example, Citra, that's patented as HBC 394, HBC being Hop Breeding Company, who developed the hop. Amarillo is patented from the hop variety VGXP01. Now, the Columbus hop, that's the C in CTZ, was bred by Chuck Zimmerman, and by 1993, a patent application was submitted for the hop by a company called Hop Union. At about the same time, Yakima Valley Hops filed a patent on the same plant they named Tomahawk. A few years after that, a third company applied for a patent for a hop called Zeus, which, while not genetically identical to Columbus and Tomahawk, was deemed too close for patent protection. Ultimately, the Columbus hop was granted a patent and Yakima Valley Hops obtained a trademark on the Tomahawk name. But for our purposes as brewers, we can think of Columbus and Tomahawk and Zeus and CTZ as essentially all being the same thing. I've removed the grains up to a rolling boil now. Let's talk about hop schedule. Now, the way these Hop Chronicle pale lagers work is we add hops at 3 stages. So there's a 60-minute addition, a 30-minute addition, and a 5-minute addition. So this being CTZ, I figured I would add the C at 60, the T at 30, and the Z at 5. Yeah. As far as the quantities go, we're looking at adding 10 grams of whichever hop you're using at 30 minutes, 10 grams of whatever hop you're using at 5 minutes, and then the 60-minute hop addition, that's the variable part. So we just add enough hops at that stage to get to 20 IBU. But here's the thing about CTZ being quite a high alpha acid hop at nearly 15%. Just the 30-minute 10 gram addition and the 5-minute 10 gram addition already get me to 20 IBU. So I am skipping the 60-minute addition. Now, I am quite a big fan of 30-minute boils, but I'm not doing one today, even though that's the only time I'm adding the hops, because a Hop Chronicles beer is traditionally a 60-minute mash and a 60-minute boil, and to be consistent with everybody else at Brülosophy, I'm sticking to that. Could have done a 30-minute boil, I didn't, but I could have. So that leaves me with this, and when you see 10 grams of hops in each of these glasses, it makes this whole thing seem a bit ridiculous. I am brewing here a full keg of beer. I'm going to add these hops. They will be in the beer for a maximum of 30 minutes. Then they'll be removed. I'm going to find 20 tasters to taste this beer. They're going to fill in a big long survey about all the aroma and all of the flavour that they pick up. All from this tiny, tiny hop addition. Oh well, see how it goes. Guess I'll just hang around for 30 minutes then. Well, actually, yeah, hold up. There is one other topic I want to discuss. Honestly, I'm feeling a bit cantankerous today, and I've clearly got nothing else to do for 30 minutes, so hold on, let me grab something. So this is the Hop Chronicles pale lager that I made. It's Kazbek. I mean, it's a perfectly drinkable beer made with good ingredients and with plenty of care taken, but it's also quite one-dimensional. And I have a whole keg of it, but there's only so much beer I can drink. And when I do drink a beer, well, look, I'm brewing beers every couple of weeks. Sometimes I'm brewing the same recipe in 2 different versions. So I have a lot of choice of beer around the house to pick from. It's pretty rare I'm going to go for this. What am I supposed to do with this beer? You know what? If you are in the Raleigh, North Carolina area and you're in the market for a smash lager, single malt, single hop, well, have I got a deal for you. Just stop by and grab the keg. Just drink it quite quickly, please, because I'm going to need that keg for the next brew pretty soon. I chilled the wort down, then added it to my keg fermenter. The gravity came out at 1050 OG, which is right on the money. Now it's time to add yeast. Now for temperature control, I'm going to control this wort to around 64 Fahrenheit or 18 Celsius. I'm just using my fridge to do that here in the back of my basement. So we're going to pitch in the global yeast, give it a couple of weeks to ferment. So what can we expect from a CTZ hop? It's known primarily for its high alpha acid content, hence why I'm using so little of it in this beer. It's typically clocking in around 14 to 16% AA. CTZ hops have earthy and spicy characteristics with some undertones of orange and grapefruit, but nothing like the extent of something like Cascade. As a result, it's a dual purpose hop, often used in American Pale Ale, IPA, and it might also be used as a bittering addition for things like stouts and lagers. Now, interestingly, the Yakima Valley Hops website specifically says that because of that subtle aroma undertones with late hop additions, CTZ is not typically used in a smash beer. Well, it is today. Now, when this beer was complete, I ended up serving it to 22 participants and Will from the Brew Club. Before we get to those results, though, a quick word about today's sponsor, the Brülosophy podcast, which quite honestly, if you're watching this Brülosophy YouTube channel and you are not aware of our flagship podcast, I'd be surprised. Each week, Marshall explores various aspects of brewing, from in-depth discussions about experiments, the lively Brews Views series, and our very own take on Q&A, which we call Brew and A, every 10th episode. New episodes hit every Tuesday. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so let's see what Will thought of my beer. Now, you've already tried this when you were blinded to what it was, and this was actually a few months ago. What did you think of it then?
I did not think it was CTZ.
Yeah.
It was a surprise.
Now it's 5 months old. I wonder if miraculously somehow now it's full of CTZ hop aromas, or it's just going to taste like a bland lager like it did the first time. So
let's see.
Let's dig in and see. Let's see if we get anything on the aroma with this.
I mean, it still smells like a lager. I mean, now it's almost like light lager territory.
If you age a beer, you probably don't want to age your hoppy beers.
Especially if you didn't add a whole lot of hops to begin with.
Right.
It's probably not going to be a whole lot left.
Quite sulfury on the aroma, I think.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it'd be an easy summer sipping beer.
It's a total lawnmower beer, isn't it? We've made a lawnmower beer at this point. I think we can just conclude that when you don't use many hops to start with, and the beer is designed to highlight hops, then drink that sucker fresh.
Yeah, I would say you should have probably chugged this about 4 months ago.
Yeah. Well, that's how the beer fared many months later, and it's probably a little bit past its prime. But when it was still fresh, I did have participants complete a survey about the characteristics they picked up from this beer. So what did they find? Well, the average aroma and flavour ratings for each descriptor are plotted on this radar graph. Tropical fruit, citrus and apple and pear were endorsed as being the most prominent aroma and flavour by participants. Least prominent were onion, dank and, perhaps a touch surprisingly, earthy. Next, participants were asked to rate the pungency of the hop, and it was no surprise to me that such a small hop addition resulted in most ratings falling between mild and moderate. Tasters were then instructed to identify beer styles they thought the hop would work well in. Pale Ale and Pale Lager received the most votes. Finally, participants were asked to rate how much they enjoyed the hop character on a 1 to 10 scale. Nobody completely loved or completely hated this beer, with ratings of 5 and 6 being the most popular choices. So I think Yakima Valley Hops had this one right. CTZ does not make a particularly remarkable smash beer. particularly one with only 20 IBU of bitterness. But I will continue to use CTZ as both a bittering addition and a way to add subtle citrus aromas to my beers. Now, another hop I've been making good use of is Fuggle, and to see how that fared in a similar test, watch this video here.